Hey everybody, here with another OHSF All-Decade team member. He played linebacker, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Yeah, so my name's Kurtis Schaefer. I'm from Stittsville. Went to high school at Sacred Heart High School, and been playing football since little kid, and played all the way up to the university level, and kind of now transitioned into the real world, working as a strength coach at Titan Performance out in the East End. So it's kind of a little bit brief of my background, but I'm sure we'll get into more of it.
Graduated what year there, Kurtis?
Graduated, I believe it would have been 2015 would have been my graduating year. Yeah.
Perfect. And so talking about, your early years with football, we all know that the community serves a huge background for that and getting involved. What is your football background and how did you get into it?
Yeah, so majority of my football background would actually been in NCAFA, playing for the Bell Warriors. So I started before even tackle football in Tyke. I was playing flag football just within the Bell Warriors organization. So I did that for a few years. And then the coaches there asked if I wanted to play for the Tyke tackle team. So transitioned there and worked my way up from Tyke all the way to midget, playing for them. And then at Sacred had the opportunity to play for the Huskies in my grade 9 year for with just the junior team. It was just getting up. Sacred is traditionally a hockey kind of school. Everyone is big in hockey there. So it's tough to kind of rally some guys up to play for that football team. So played for them in the grade 9 year. And then we didn't have a team for my grade 10 and 11, and then got into it in my grade 12 year. So everything leading up to my high school experience would have been with the Bell Warriors in the community league, and then got the opportunity to represent my high school for the grade 9 and 12 year.
And growing up, were you always a linebacker? Were there any coaches that kind of got you into playing linebacker, or what was the situation there?
So as a young kid, everyone wants the ball, everyone wants to score and get all the touchdowns. So I actually was a fullback and a slot back up until I believe would have been my Mosquito year. And then my head coach and my dad, who was actually our defensive coordinator, they were talking. We had me and two others that were kind of competing for that fullback spot. And then on the constant drives to the field and back home with my dad, he was always convinced me. He's like, well, if you play linebacker, you have the opportunity to make an impact on every play rather than just, the plays that are scripted for you on offense. And practice and during training camp in that fall, they kind of eased my way into linebacker and started off more of like an outside linebacker, stand-up end. And then as the years progressed, moved into like more of a strong side linebacker, and then played a little bit of free safety in my midget year for the Bel Air Norsemen. So mostly defense. I played a little bit of offense, but once I made that switch to linebacker, I felt right. It felt like the position for me, and I never looked back.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so just moving into that, once you got into the high school scene, just talk about maybe a little bit of your time in Ottawa high school football, less about the junior varsity stuff, more about the varsity and your grade 12 year. What were some positive and some fun moments? And were you always playing linebacker there as well, or did you split some time?
Well, with Sacred kind of being not a big football school, the team was pretty made up of me and all my hockey buddies. I played hockey all through growing up as well. So all my hockey buddies, I got them convinced to come out for the football team. So I think I was the only guy on the team that had prior football experience. So everyone was just put into different positions. So they kind of used me as that Army knife. I was playing linebacker, safety, running back, receiver, special teams. It was rare when to see the sideline with those games, just because, no one knows what they were doing. So they just needed a little bit of experience on both sides, which made it fun. Unlike community football, you play your one position, you focus on that because it was a little more of a competitive atmosphere. But the best thing I enjoyed about it was getting those new experiences with all those guys that have never played football. So you see your one buddy go on a kickoff and absolutely blow someone up, and just seeing the excitement and the enjoyment around on the sideline, and all our friends at watching the game, just seeing someone who's never played football before go and make a big play. It was something that was an experience that you can't trade in for. It's something that I'd never done before, and was probably the one time I get to kind of experience that football memories with those guys. So it was really cool.
Yeah, that's great. That's usually how a lot of high school coaches, find athletes. It's, scouring the halls and finding guys from different teams and stuff like that. Hockey usually being a big one because they love the contact and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely. It's definitely been something that I've used at Mac while coaching as well, and it's helped bolster our ranks and whatnot. But that season as a whole, how did it go for you? And what were your immediate thoughts about that season and whatnot?
Yeah. So I believe we were in Div 2 or Div 3. So we were actually playing your school, Immaculata, and some of the other teams. There weren't too many teams out in the West End that were in that division. So a lot of the East town teams I think we went 3-3 or 3-4. We just missed playoffs. We lost our game to Immaculata to make playoffs. So that was upsetting, but overall, it was a good year. I mean, I enjoyed it a lot. There's probably one memory that really solidifies it. We were playing at St. Joe's, but we were playing Colonel By at the time. And I was fortunate. This actually will probably segue into the next portion, but probably my most fond memory of that season was they drove down the field on us. They had the ball on the 5-yard line, and they ran a play where the slot ran and out, and they overthrew it. So I was just sitting back, and they came out in the same formation. I'm like, okay, are they going to run the same play here? So I just kind of sat on the out, and then he threw it. I jumped it in the end zone and took it 110 down the field. And as I'm running down the sideline, I kind of see my peripheral, and I see Phil Roberts, who's the linebacker coach at Queens. I was running by, and I just full field sprint down him. And it's funny, it led into kind of more of that recruiting process. But that was probably one of the coolest memories, getting a 110-yard pick six, running past the sideline, seeing all the guys excited. It was a really cool thing.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's a great segue because, we are talking about the scouting process and guys like Phil, who's now at U Ottawa, of course, but he's been a mainstay in youth sports, and he knows talent when he sees it. And that's amazing that, you got to do that in front of him. And I'm sure it helped in terms of adding to your recruiting and stuff like that. Seeing a guy take back 110-yard interception for a touchdown, he probably goes, yeah, who's that guy? Absolutely. So the next question is, of course, how can student athletes aspire to have that similar pathway to you and getting to university and then eventually the pros? And just talking about that recruiting process from high school to university, and then of course university to the professional ranks.
So one thing that kind of was an eye-opener to me was to even qualify for any scholarship money or to get a scholarship, you need to have an 80% average. And at the time, in like my grade 10, 11 years, I was mid to high 70s. And just speaking to those coaches, they're like, oh, well, what's your average? I tell them that. They're like, oh, well, you need an 80% to qualify for that AFA. So it was like, okay, well, now I got to get my notes in the books. Yeah, I got to work hard on the field, in the gym and all that stuff. But you got to be a student first, right? That's why they call it a student athlete. So that was a big eye opener for me, especially leading into signing with Queens. Is one, you need that 80%, but two, that's a very competitive school to get in. So having that realization, like, okay, you got to be a student first, you got to have the good grades, or else coaches, that's a complete turnoff for them. If you're in the 60s, if you're in the 70s, they won't even give you the time of day at times, just because you can't get into their school. So realizing that was a big thing for me. And then just going to a couple prospect camps, one at Queens, a couple local, and just getting to have like a weekend where you're interacting on the campus with the coaches. Some of the players are there. That was one thing that was really big for me. And then going on the one thing that my dad always told me was, you got to find a school you love in a place that you want to live with, then have a football program that suits you. So having a school, because that's first, education is first. Football doesn't last forever, as we all know. Some people are lucky to go to the pros and extend that career. Some people are lucky to go to youth sports and extend their career that way. But eventually, you're not going to be a football player. So having that education was one thing that was really stressed to me. And then being in a place that you love, like football season is 4 months of the year. You're there for another semester and possibly the summer. Like, you got to enjoy the place you're living at, and then finally a football team that works. So that was some advice that even younger guys and recruits and that even ask me now is I tell them those three things that my dad told me back then. And it really helped me kind of narrow down my selections and then kind of pick and choose of where I wanted to go. And it was one thing that, it was definitely a big advice tool that I carried on. And now I pass on to kind of younger guys whenever they ask.
Sure.
So like that, I went to a Queens camp going into my grade 12 year, and that started the kind of recruiting process with them. I narrowed it down between Ottawa U and Queens, and ultimately decided that the program at Queens, the city, getting away from home but not being too far away from home, and then the football team, I always had a soft spot for them growing up, watching the 2009 Vanier Cup on TV, and my dad always saying, "Oh, like they're not just football players. Like this is one of the most prestigious schools in Canada." Is something that kind of really struck home with me, and I always had an interest in it. And then when the opportunity came, it was a tough choice. It was a stressful time having coaches call you, and almost it was like an interview process for a month or so. But I was happy I made that decision, and I have no regrets about going to Queens. So it was interesting. It was something that was new to me, but looking back on it, it's something cool to say that I did that. I went through it.
Now, you would have been recruited by Coach Sheehan at the time as the head coach, and then it probably would have switched over to Coach Snyder, or was that?
Yeah, so mainly my recruiting was with Phil Roberts, because he was in Ottawa. He was a local Ottawa guy, and he would be driving to Kingston for football. So he was always there. He was probably one of the main recruiters, and then of course Pat Sheehan. He would have been my head coach for my first 4 years, and then Coach Snyder would have taken over my 5th year of this last season. So mainly Coach Roberts. Coach Sheehan was kind of a traditionally an offensive sided coach, so he dealt a lot with offensive side. Doesn't mean he wasn't involved, but a lot of the more frequent communications was with Coach Roberts, which I really enjoyed. He's an unbelievable man, unbelievable coach, and it was nice to develop that relationship as a recruit and kind of carry that into me being a player. So.
Beautiful. And yeah, I mean, as we all know, you had a very successful career at Queens, doing, linebacker, being a starting linebacker, and then also having the ability to have an opportunity to go beyond. That doesn't necessarily mean it always leads to a pro contract and stuff. What are some stuff, but it did for you in terms of the combine and whatnot, and having some looks. What's some feedback you can give to guys going through their 4th and 5th year, going forward?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest thing is just be available, be ready to perform at any time. I was at the point where I thought my football career was over, and then I got a late invite to the combine. And it's like, okay, well now I gotta kick it back in gear. If that's something that you aspire to do and move on to that next level, it can't be okay, I'm in my 5th year. This is something that I want to do. This is something that could happen. It's something that you got to have long-term vision and start thinking about when your 1st, 2nd, 3rd year. That's a part of setting goals. If you just go in and to your 1st year training camp and say, hey, I'm just here for the football jack and be a part of the team, well, those goals aren't going to line up with if you want to go to the CFL, say. So having that long-term goal, because it isn't a overnight process. It takes multiple seasons of experience of seeing things on the field. It takes multiple years to get your body ready and compete with professional athletes, right? I came into Queens at 17 years old. At that time, you're not ready to compete with 24, 25 older guys at that level. So making sure that, you have that long-term goal, and it's a process. And one saying that our strength coach always said was trust the process. So just buying into the program, buying into the system, and kind of following the right path the whole way out, rather than just kind of, okay, it's my 5th year, now it's time to turn it on, kind of having that mentality throughout to build those habits so that they transition. So once you get to that position where it's okay, it's time to perform, you've been ready, you've been expecting that time, and you're just waiting for your opportunity. So always being ready and always being prepared to kind of go in and have an impact.
Yeah, I think you've hit an important point there, talking about the lifting process, right? Guys at 16, 17 years old, just getting into the weight room, have to understand that it is going to take some time for their body to develop. You and I can both attest to that. But it's the realization that, if you stay with the process, it can lead to some pretty beautiful things, like being a starter at Queens and, like getting on special teams and never coming off the field, basically, in that sense. So that's a great sentiment to have. especially, for any high school kid looking to, go next level and whatnot. Uh, these student athletes have to realize, like you said, it's 80 average and then get in the weight room, and that using that off season time to actually, get their body ready and whatnot. And I've been fortunate enough to actually train with you as well, and I've seen your work ethic, and it's been pretty cool to experience that and whatnot with Titan and Joey. Are you still around with those guys, or?
Yeah, still at over at Titan Performance, working with our younger athletes, and then our football programs, which we just started up with the reopening of gyms. So if there's any East End football athletes, high school football athletes that are looking to take their game to the next level, at Titan_perform on Instagram, hit us up and we'll get you guys right for the 2021 season.
Well, you heard him there first. That's, again, an OHSF all-decade linebacker from Sacred Heart telling you the business and what it takes. And so I just want to say thank you and congratulations again, Kurtis.
Thank you.
The pleasure is all ours, and it was clearly a unanimous decision for us, and we hope you hopefully get another shot at perhaps getting back onto a CFL roster when COVID ends, and then also keep training the youth and maybe get into coaching. Just like to see you on the sidelines. All right.
Yeah, who knows?
All the best, brother.
Yeah, thank you very much. Have a good one.
Take care.